Welcome to the 5th video on our series on pip counting. Several items for this video. We will be introducing and demonstrating counting sequence. Then we will return to our quiz format. This is the big one. This is a video where we will dive deep into shifting, which will allow us to use each of our basic formations even when they are hidden or altered. The quiz section will be presented in 3 different chapters with an introduction and examples for each of the chapters. Following these quizzes, there will be a few more comments and tips, and looking forward, video number 6, the last 2 formations that I use when I'm counting, and this is used for the remaining checkers, the checkers that will be in our opponent's outer board and our opponent's inner board. Counting sequence. When I talk about counting sequence, what I'm talking about is the actual act, the actual steps I take when I'm counting live backgammon. So let's count a series of numbers. Let's add these up. 33, 43, 63, 81, 91, 97. Not too hard. Let's count and add this series of numbers. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 88, 91, 97. Again, easy, but notice that the bottom one just flowed better. It had a pattern to it. It had a flow and a rhythm to it. Now, why is that? The reason for this is that as humans, adding and subtracting is an acquired skill, but pattern recognition is hardwired into us. And so we want to take advantage of what we already know and find these patterns to help us count faster. Let's look at some number sequences. Let's count up this number sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do a sequence by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Let's do a sequence by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. And this is an important point. What we're not doing is, we're not saying and, we're not saying plus or minus, we're only saying the numbers. So we're not doing 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 3 more than 6 is 9, plus 3 is 12. We're not stopping and starting. It just flows. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Let's do pattern by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. By 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And for most people, if I asked which were the easiest, it'd be the 1s, the 10s, and the 5s. And they're going to take advantage of this to make all our counting easier. So I'm always looking to use 10s, and there's 2 ways of doing this. Let's add up this series of numbers. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 103. Notice I'm breaking up, once I'm starting, I'm breaking everything up into 10s. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 103. Let's do this sequence. 33, 43, 53, 63, 73, 83, 93, 103. Same trick. I simply moved a few of these numbers, added them. This is 103 and this is 103. What this demonstrates is that if you're starting with a multiple of 10, it's very easy to continue using 10s. If you're starting, or at any point in your adding, in your sequence, if you're starting with a non-multiple of 10, if I can revert to 10s to complete it, I always will. And I will use the 10s at every opportunity I can, and most of the time, I'm able to count my entire board, my opponent's entire board, without really doing any math at all. And with a little practice, everything will feel like a sequence to the point where you don't even feel you're doing any adding or subtracting. The numbers just go in a sequence and it just flows. Let's do 6 examples and I'll show you exactly how I do this on a live board. 6 examples to demonstrate sequence counting. I will also demonstrate how I use tens and the 10 point in my counting. Take note that I'm using numbers and eliminating my use of words. Something you may want to do is to rewind these examples several times, follow along out loud, and this will help you get the most value from the quizzes that follow. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 3. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 3. Note my use of the 10 point. 40, 50, 60, 59, 69, 67. 40, 50, 60, 59, 69, 67. 45, 55, 65, 75, 78, 80. 45, 55, 65, 75, 78, 80. 40, 50, 60, 73, 83, 82. 40, 50, 60, 73, 83, 82. 40, 50, 60, 71, 81, 84. 40, 50, 60, 71, 81, 84. 50, 60, 70, 80, 85, 87. 50, 60, 70, 80, 85, 87. Now we're in the quiz section of the video. The quiz will be broken up into 3 chapters. The first one will be easy, the second 2 more challenging. And in the examples preceding the quizzes and in the quizzes themselves, you will see checkers being moved. And just a reminder, this is for the purpose of the video and for learning. When you're playing live, you don't want to be moving checkers to new points just for the sake of counting pips. One thing that is perfectly fine to do is to move the checkers up a little to help you visualize the board. In this case, moving these 2 checkers up helps you see 45, 55. But during live play, don't move checkers when you're counting. First chapter will be shifting to a known position, 1 checker versus 1 checker. So here's a known position, very easy to count. Here are the checkers we'd like to count. -3, +3, 40, 50, 1. Can you see it without moving these checkers? +3, -3, 40, 50, 1. Our next example, known formation, triangle, +1, -1, 52. 52. Our next example, known formation, +1, -1, 45. +1, -1, 45. Our next example, our known formation, and our shift, 47. 47. Our next example, our known formation, plus 2 minus 2, 58. Plus 2 minus 2, 58. That's the end of chapter 1. I'm guessing you noticed, at least once, that there are more than one formation that you can shift to. Another way of looking at it is that there's two different solutions to any given position, and that's often the case. And that's good. That's a sign that you're getting better. This is a bit of an art form and personal preference. And my advice is when you see a formation that you can shift to that simplifies everything, just do it, count the rest of the checkers and move on. And if you do review or think about it afterward and you say to yourself, there was a more efficient way of doing it, then that's great. But stop yourself from doing that when you're playing. As soon as you find one, count, move on, and just use it as a continuation of the learning process. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. To count these checkers, we could add 1, subtract 1, and it gives us a very simple two-step answer, 45, 50. Super easy, nothing to complain about here. But if we subtract 3, add 3, now it's just one number staring us right in the face, 50, super easy. So this is an example of a position having two different solutions, one of them being easier than the other. Which one will you see first? Chapter 2 will be very similar to Chapter 1, except that we will be shifting more than 2 checkers. We'll be shifting 3 or 4 checkers, and that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for us. For example, I can subtract 2, I can add 2. I can add 2, I can subtract 2. You can do this with any number of checkers. As long as the pips you're moving are the same, you can do it. -1 plus 1, plus 2 minus 2, plus 3 minus 3. So you can see how this is really going to open things up for us. A few quick examples. Example number 1. Pretty easy to see the formation we'd like to have. Plus 2 minus 2, 45. Super easy. Plus 2 minus 2, 45. Our next example, a little harder to see. Minus 3, plus 3, 45, 49. Minus 3 gives us our formation. Plus 3, 45, 49. And our last example, this one should really jump out at you. Super easy formation to go for. Minus 2, plus 2, 43. Chapter 3. Now the fun begins. In chapters 1 and 2, we were shifting to a known shape. But this works so well that we do not want to limit ourselves to the times when all the checkers are cooperating. We've already learned in previous videos 3 variations of shapes: the plus shape, the minus shape, and the missing checker shape. Here's an example of a plus shape: 40, 2 more than 40, 42. Here's an example of a minus shape: 1 less than 45. 1 less than 45. And here's an example of a missing checker shape. This is our formation. We're missing 5. 50 missing 5 is 45. And these are what I call unknown shapes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to simply expand our skill set of shifting checkers into shifting into these 3 variations. This is more challenging, but it's well worth the effort, as once you master this skill, in most all formations of checkers, there lies the opportunity to count 8 to 12 checkers without doing any math. Let's do a few examples. Our first example, fairly easy to see the formation that we're after here. We're going to shift this checker 1 and shift this checker 1, 2 more than 30. 2 more than 30. We're shifting to an unknown position. Our second example, formation we're looking at, plus 2, minus 2. There's a checker here, 4 less than 60. Minus 2, plus 2, 4 less than 60, 56. Our third example, formation, subtract 1 pip, add 1 pip. 1 less than 50. 1 less than 50. Our last example before the quiz, plus 1 pip, minus 1 pip. Missing checker formation. 50, missing 4, 46. 46. that ends the quizzes for this video. A few quick tips before signing off on this video. You will find as you get better, you will notice things that you can use. For example, for this, well, I could look at some switching. I see this simply as 40 minus 4 for 36. Another example of this is this, which occurs often enough to mention. These 6 can be out here as well. Instead of switching checkers, I simply see this as 50 minus 6 for 44. Your goal is not to expand your library of things to look for. The fewer the better, and just to get really good at the ones you know. But as you see more, you may find 1 or 2 that you add to your toolbox that helps you out. And that's great. Your goal is to look for an easy shape in your home field. That's where the bulk of your checker is going to be. The more checkers that you eliminate, the easier it is to count the rest of the board. There's just fewer checkers left. So your home board is going to be your priority. Points out here and then the rest of the board are going to be secondary. And that will be the focus of the next video. Talk about the checkers on the opposite side of the board. And that'll be video number 6 in the pip counting series. And as always, like, subscribe, comment, all those fun things.